The Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast is proudly sponsored by New Vision.
My team, kinda power. I love the power. I love the power.
Hi everyone, I am Macca 19 and this is the Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast live once again on Port Fan Radio. Fishing Rick is away, so we are joined by two legends of the forum. We are speaking with Captn Heffo. How are you, mate?
Yeah, guys. Thanks, Macca, for having me on again.
Too easy, buddy. And also tribey.
Hello.
Here he is. It's begun already. I love it.
It has. Hey, look, I've got to play the role of Rick somehow, so why not just be a jester for the entire proceedings?
Yes, do
Classic.
it. Do you have a squeaky chair?
No, I don't. But
I
if
actually
that
have
was
a
a
squeaky-
euphemism, then I'm sadly mistaken. So.
I actually have a squeaky chair, so if you need the roll filled, you just yell out. I'll do a big yawn.
I love it. That's great. Well, look, it's a pity we couldn't be here under a little bit of more happier circumstances, I guess.
No, not this weekend.
Bugger. Oh, well, let's get straight into it and do our love and hate. I reckon we'll give all of our three loves first. Tribey, do you want to start, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. Although, where can you find a love after that debacle?
Where is the love?
Yeah, where is it? Because, how do you survive that, really? I mean, I'll give my love first, and this is a little bit of a left field that will probably ruin both of your hates. My love is for Shane McInerney. Umpire Shane McInerney.
Yeah, where's this
Because no matter how gloomy the weather is or how shitty life might become, I could be homeless subsisting solely on the brown out of my own poo, and I know I'll never be that loathsome, poodle-headed fudge knuckle. What a sad excuse of human carbon that man is.
That is just about the best thing ever said on this podcast.
What a description.
That's the best description ever.
You're welcome.
I love it. Well said. Heffo, can you match that, mate?
I hope so. My love is actually, I went to Saturday's game at Alberton, so my love was a mixture of Amon and also Impey, who came back into the side and had a pretty good display. If anyone was there, they'd probably agree. I can't wait to see him back in the side, hopefully next week. And Amon, he's so close for a debut, and he goes back to the SANFL and he plays games like he did on the weekend, and you just think, when's his time going to come? And when it does, I'm going to be it's going to be my love again for that weekend, because can't wait for this guy to jump on the big stage and show us what he's got.
That's it. Well, it could well be this week. It'd be good to
Throw
get
one
some
in
fresh
from
blood
left
in there and see what they can do.
Someone that's
Absolutely.
fit. I think, yeah, if anyone needs a rest, and I won't name them just yet, we'll get to that later. But yeah, especially the blokes like that are knocking the door down, so you got to give them a shot when they're fit and firing.
That's it. Well, look, my love this week is Bobby Carlile. He is just in absolute mental form right now, probably career best form. I think he's only given up about 2 goals in the last 4 weeks. He's defending well, spoiling well. He runs so hard from the defensive 50, and I still think he deserves more kudos than he gets around the league. It wasn't that long ago that he was, dropped for poor preparation and looked like his career may fizz out a little bit. But, the last 2.5 years, he's been phenomenal.
He's got a bit of the Jay Schultz delayed credit, I think. I think when you go around the league and listen to people talk about Alapati Carlile, they still kind of refer to him like he's that player that we had, 3-4 years ago, where he had that really promising 2009 that started with a bang. Obviously, he kept Matthew Lloyd scoreless and ran up the field and kicked a goal himself. And he looked primed as a 22, 23-year-old fullback to be one of the good ones, almost Mel Michael-esque. And then he just, along with the rest of the side, really fell into a hole with his form and fitness. But as you've said, in 2013, 2014, even 2012, he wasn't bad. There was a reason why we gave him that 4-year contract, which people scoffed at the time. But what more can you say about the guy? He's just become an absolute rock back there.
He's almost acted as a rebounding defender. I mean, there's times where he does those repeat run efforts, and you just think you remind yourself sometimes that he's over 100 kilo, is he not? And he'd be 190 something centimeters, and he's outrunning some of these forwards that are meant to be keeping the ball in.
I think it's just a credit to himself how he's turned his career around, and you know, in my opinion, he should probably be All-Australian fullback if it was picked right now.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely at this point in time.
But we know that's not going to happen because Collingwood's Jack Frost only needs to hold a mediocre 20-year-old centre-half forward to 2 goals 3 or something, and he automatically gets the kudos as the premier defender in the competition. It's just ridiculous.
No, well said. And look, our hate this week, Tribey. What's your hate?
Look, my hate is probably the hot take emphasis on crowds that we seem to have. I mean, it's all very well and good to have the, you know, there's almost like an arms race for who can have the highest crowds, be it the Crows or Porter or the rest of it. And it kind of came to a head yesterday when we got 38,500 to Sunday twilight, Mother's Day, rain forecast. It was forecast to be a horrible day. We're playing West Coast who, they have maybe 25 fans in this state. And it ended up being the highest Mother's Day crowd across the entire AFL for 17 or 18 years. And I'm hearing people, you know, even our own supporters saying it was an average or disappointing crowd. I mean, what are these people huffing? I mean, are they out the back of a 7-Eleven in Firle smelling some petrol? Because honestly, they just have to... They've just got to take a good hard look at themselves. I mean, we would have killed to get 38,500 on a Friday night against Collingwood, you know, going for top spot 5 to 10 years ago. And we've absolutely pulled out a fantastic crowd number given the circumstances. And I think rather than, you know, people going, oh, well, you know, our own fans are saying it's ordinary. We've got Crows fans saying it was laughable. I mean, turn it up. I reckon it was a fantastic crowd figure.
So that's I was hoping for over 40. But, 38.5 is still pretty good. Well, it's very good.
And Adelaide Oval does look packed, even at 38,000 people. I think that at the start you'd struggle to see too many groups of seats that were vacant across the ground. But it feels really well, I think. It does appear to look like there's people there. If there's over maybe 30,000 people, I think that it will look packed.
Yeah. And it keeps the sound in as well. It sounds like there's a lot more people there than there actually is.
No, absolutely spot on. I mean, it would have been nice to get 40,000, but it was a good spectacle on television. From where I was, and obviously where Heffo was, we made plenty of noise all night. And, you know, 38,500, I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at, I don't think, given the circumstances.
That's it.
No, definitely not.
Well, Heff, what's your hate this week?
My hate was Aaron Young. He obviously didn't do a whole lot on last night. Ended up being dragged in the third and subbed out of the game. Didn't have an injury. Obviously, we had a few other people that we could have brought off for management. We had a couple of blokes on, as we've said, on one leg. But my hate it's mainly because of the hype that he had last week. He had that article written about him. I actually saved it because I knew I was coming on, and I thought, if Aaron Young has a great game, I'm going to pull that out and I'm going to quote some stuff from him and I'm going to give him a great big rap. And my hate is that I cannot give him a rap. He would have been my love if he'd done all right, but he probably brought himself down a little bit in my books from sort of last night's game. But he's still very young and he can get himself back into it. And I know that he's got that inside midfielder body that he can just throw about, and I really want him to get back on the horse and get back in good books with Kenny.
Yeah, he kind of went from looking like a Moneyball special to a fringe player in the space of one game, didn't he?
Yeah,
I mean,
he did.
He's been really impressive for the past couple of weeks. He had some shaky moments against Adelaide, but he was a real battering ram. But against West Coast, unfortunately, against a midfield which I thought would have been about at his level for clearances, for speed and all the rest of it, he just never seemed to get going. And I don't know why we subbed him when we did, because I think he had 6 clearances but at the time he was subbed. And I know his disposal wasn't flash, but I did think it was a bit strange that given we had Brad Ebert on one leg, And also Schultz hobbling around in the forward line doing 3/5 of nothing because of the injury there. I did find it a little bit strange that Kenny almost lost faith in him and decided to pull the pin to bring on Archie.
Yeah, there was obviously something that he did that Kenny and the coaching staff weren't liking. I'm not too sure what it was. I thought he was still pretty good around the packs, but yeah, I mean, he just needs to find more of the ball. That's his issue is, when he gets it, something good generally happens. He just needs to basically double the amount of times he gets the ball, which is going to be pretty hard to do, especially with Wines coming back in the side. And do we think there's still a spot in the side for Aaron Young when Ollie's back?
Well, it depends who else is still in the side when that. Well, I guess he's going to be back this week, isn't he? So, we're hoping so. I think Aaron Young this week does play. I don't think that he deserves to be dropped just yet. But when Pollock comes back and we have a full strength side and we deal with the injuries we have then, and he could find his way out. But that's a fair while away just yet. So I hope that he'd keep himself in contention until then.
I think we definitely still need one of those sort of second string inside midfielders to take the pressure off of Boak and Gray and those sorts of players. And Youngie's the perfect guy to do that. Whether Andrew Moore kicks him out of the side or not, I'm not too sure. Whether that might be this week or in a few weeks' time. I mean, in the end, competition for spots is only going to be a good thing.
Yeah, we just need Andrew Moore to get on the horse, don't we? Seriously, I mean, he would have been primed to come in and really grab a spot by the throat and make it his own for a good 2-3 week period. And he had the suspension with the umpire, and that was the result was as disappointing as Andrew Moore's actions were. And we could look at that as a blown opportunity. But on the plus side, Andrew Moore's now fit. He will have completely got over the hamstring injury, and we'll look to see him have a real crack with Archie and Young and Mitchell and try to get a spot.
My hate this week is our lack of composure in tight games again. And look, I think this needs to be split into two parts. I think if we're in front and defending a lead, I think we seem to be all right. But if we are down by 1 or 2 goals and needing to find a couple of goals in the last 10 minutes to win, we just can't seem to do it. And I got shot down earlier this year, I think both on the podcast and on the forum, by saying that we struggle in tight games. And I do stand by that. And look, since the start of 2014, we've lost against Sydney, Essendon, Adelaide, Collingwood, Freo twice, and Hawthorn, where I think we've squandered many opportunities late with either poor entry inside 50, players going for the Hail Mary and kicking it out on the full, missing from dead in front, missed handballs. We just seem to lose all semblance of calm and composure. In those last sort of 10 minutes, we're needing that 1 or 2 more goals. And personally, I think it's probably a little bit of a concern.
Yeah, I mean, especially the Freo game, that was a killer. It was the start of the season. You really wanted to come out alright. But yeah, I mean, our recent form with tight games hasn't been probably totally where we want it to be. I don't know if it's the guys just not getting each other up, or if it's every time you see these tight games, and you saw it again last night, the leaders do stand up. I mean, you got Boak and Gray in that last quarter. They really did try and take the game and really settle it down. But it could be just the people that are sort of behind them directly, and they're just not following the lead or getting up when the right time is. And I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I know there's definitely an issue there, and it needs to be addressed.
I remember a very similar match last year when we lost to Essendon, and after dragging back, we got to within a kick, and we just seemed to conspire to create every sort of miss opportunity and mistake that we could possibly do to not get that goal that would have seen us get over the line with the crowd going wild. I mean, I remember asking one of my mates in front of me how long was left, because he was texting his friend at home who was watching it live, and I think we were within a goal with 5 minutes 20 left on the clock. And I thought to myself, plenty of time. Our class is going to shine through. We're going to get the ball movement and the scoreboard pressure we need. But it just didn't seem to come. We just seemed to be panicked and, 1 or 2 extra handballs, or trying to shimmy and make a harder kick when we were ignoring leads. And you just got to wonder, this isn't a team that doesn't know how to win. We've been forged in the fire of 2 consecutive Septembers where we've beaten Collingwood at the MCG, we've beaten Fremantle at Subiaco, and you would have thought that with that experience under our belts, we'd be able to take care of an opponent such as West Coast at home. But it's almost as if our memories have been wiped and we've forgotten how to win those tough, hard September-like games.
Yeah. We just seem to panic too much, especially going inside 50, and I'm going to call it feng shui football from now on, because we just seem on this never-ending search for the perfect, forward entry, the perfect goal. It's almost like watching Arsenal play soccer, where everyone has to touch the ball and then you kick it over your head and it goes in the net, sort of thing. And it's just never going to happen. And I think in our search for always wanting to play this, perfect team-first football, I think, especially up forward, we've almost lost our instinct on just how to get it done, basically. And I think that's a bit of a problem.
Well, was it Pittard in the last minute when he ignored a lead by Ryder, I think it was, into the forward 50 to kind of, shimmy onto his left and try to go for the big launch with his... I don't know whether he was trying to go for goal from 60 metres out or try to put it to the square, but he ignored a perfectly good lead to launch it long. And, of course, it came off the side of his boot and it was out in the full and it just deflated the crowd and his teammates. And...
Yeah.
It's just not winning football. It's not even, March, April, May downhill skiing football. It's just bad football no matter what part of the season we're at. And I don't know where it's crept in.
There are actually a lot of entries in that last quarter that we made, but couldn't make anything of it. I'm not too sure if we were going too long to a pack and not really having crummers around or what, but every time that it would drop to the ground, it didn't seem like we were there. It seemed like they were always there. They had the numbers back. Obviously, they had Hearn that was sitting back in defence, sort of ready for to sort of be the loose man. But yeah, I mean, without being able to force anyone onto a lead or anything, it was just kick into packs and it's just entry after entry after entry in that last quarter. And it's so frustrating when it's just, we did doing it so perfectly before, and now we just can't seem to drag it around to jag a goal, and it's just I just found it so frustrating, and especially when Peter did that, it deflated everything. Everyone just sort of stopped.
Yeah. Look, we've had a couple of tweets in. Nicholas Till has tweeted in his love and hate. His love was that monster handball from Archie, which I've got to say I haven't seen a handball like that for about 20 years. It was incredible. And his hate was Robbie being deliberately tripped, yet nothing mentioned about it, no fines, no anything, which is pretty strange as well. And Port Adelaide 1870, he says there's a fine line between high risk and high reward. Our mids run forward, and the pressure on the kick goes up. Then we cough it up inside 50.
Yeah, well said. But just on that trip, I don't know if you followed the running battle we had with a couple of West Coast fans about it on the forum today. They seem to believe that when you slow it down, McGovern actually hit Robbie Gray in the hip or the upper thigh, and it should have been play on. And our own Russell Liebert handball concurred. So I'm not sure what game I'm watching where you're allowed to throw yourself in front of an opponent's legs and deliberately kind of take them out of the play 5 metres off the ball, but there it is.
I'm actually, I did see someone posted a GIF of it, and I've looked at it a few times, and yeah, I don't know, if I was the defender and I did that, I would have thought, geez, that was a pretty good, shepherd, I think. I don't know if I'd classify it as a trip, and I don't know, he didn't catch him below the legs, and I know that he sort of just threw his whole body in front of him, but I don't know if you can call it a free. I think that Robbie did go for a bit of a dive, and I think the umpire just saw a bit through him. I don't know. I don't think I'll be liked for that. But yeah, I don't think it was a trip, to be honest with you.
Oh, controversial.
Who invited you on, Heff, honestly? Well, look, let's get on to our review. And look, it was round 6 at Adelaide Oval, Port versus West Coast, in front of our best Mother's Day crowd of 38,508 people. And we lost by 10 points, 10 goals 8 to 11 goals 12. Robbie Gray kicked 3 and Wingard with 2. They were the only multiple goal scorers. I think it's probably fair to split this up into two halves and talk about the first half a bit to begin with, because I actually thought we did play some pretty decent footy up to half-time.
Yeah, we definitely looked like the better team in the first half. We did start out sluggish in the start of most quarters, I thought, but we it was basically our defence versus their defence in that first, and we defended really well. They defended really well, but it was the midfield of both sides that sort of ended up battling it out, I think, and they probably had a few more like the Pritis and Marston, which and Shuey as well. Even though he didn't get too many disposals, when he did, they were just really deadly sort of disposals to really direct, and he ended up with a couple of goals as well. So that was the first half. I was thinking that we were pretty right. I was sitting back at half time thinking, no dramas, we've seemed like we've got this in the bag, and we'll end up coming home pretty strong, but didn't seem to happen.
What about you, Tribey? How are you feeling at half time?
Not too bad. I think I went for a beer and I had a hot dog, and that was where it began and ended. Yeah, look, from the get-go, I just want to know when this West Coast midfield learned how to kick. I mean,
yeah.
For the last 2 or 3 years, let's go through the list. Pritis, Marston, Shuey, Gaff, Wellingham. I mean, these guys were their prime movers. I mean, even Dom Sheed is just, I think is a mediocre to good kick. And they just seem to surgically move it from one end to the other with absolute ease. And if it caught me by surprise sitting in the stand having the aforementioned hot dog, I can't, I shudder to think how how our boys felt about it. And, even after we kicked 4 goals in a row, West Coast they didn't seem fussed. They didn't seem stressed. They just put their head down. They kept going. And last year that wouldn't have happened. If we got a 4-goal run on at Adelaide Oval, we were going to win and win handsomely. And West Coast didn't buckle. Their skills didn't drop away. They kept getting numbers to the contest. And look, we've said that Wines and Pollock are out, but, we shouldn't be losing to this West Coast team. And while they have improved, we just didn't seem to have an answer when they decided to go up a gear.
Yeah. I mean, West Coast outs are very significant. They've probably got one of the worst injury lists in the league at the moment. So, but look, I mean, their midfield's probably the best part of their side at the moment. And I do agree their skills have gone up an extra notch compared to the last couple of years. And, they've always been good at winning the clearances and winning the contested ball, but they just can't use it on the outside after that. But, I mean, in the end, I was feeling pretty happy at halftime. I thought, we're not playing all that well, but it's probably going to end up being a 5 to 6 goal, fairly uneventful, win that you sort of go, well, we won and that's about it, and then you forget about it, a couple of days later and that's it. But I don't know. I mean, I guess there was always that thought in the first quarter. We came out really sluggish, and there was that thought of, is it going to be one of these days? And I guess it turned out to be one of those days, really. But I guess in the end, I thought Jasper Pittard had a pretty poor first half. I thought he was getting run around a lot by Elliot Yeo. And I think if Elliot Yeo, he must have had about 5 shots on goal in the first half and kicked 1 goal, 2 and about 3 out on the full. And I mean, if he had a kick straight, West Coast would have been in front at half time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Elliot Yeo, he was absolutely fantastic against GWS. I watched that last week because I had a significant investment involved and promptly lost it by about 80 points. But, Elliot Yeo, one of those want-away players from Brisbane. He's essentially the Groper Polek, if you will. And he has absolutely gone up. He's gone from a halfback flanker. He's moved through the midfield. He knows how to get his hands on it. And let me tell you, when he calibrates his sights and learns how to kick, as we've talked about, once he joins the other West Coast players in raising his skills, he'll be quite an accomplished midfielder, I think. And we were lucky that he just happened to be off his game because, as you say, it would have been probably a 2 to 4 goal lead to West Coast on balance at halftime. So,
yeah. No, that's right. Well, look, let's go into the second half. Where did it all go wrong? We sort of came out pretty sluggish in the third quarter, and it's not the first time this year that we've done that.
No. We come out slow again in that third quarter, and we sort of let them get a bit of a run on, and finished with Kennedy getting that mark right in the on the siren, which thankfully he missed. But it was really frustrating to sit there again and sort of see this. As you said, we were so casual at half time, and then sitting there and seeing it sort of fall away right in front of us. They just set up all those stoppages really well. Like I said, they had someone right there at the back waiting for the entry out, and they were just able to spread and they used the wings every time they went up the wing, and they forced us to do the same thing. We weren't able to use the corridor pretty much at all throughout the game. It was all up the wing, and then we'd kick it and it'd go out of bounds, or they'd kick and go out of bounds. They'd set up again in the stoppage, and they'd have someone there again at the back, and they'd dish it out, and they'd able to move it straight into their forward 50. But if it wasn't for our defence, I mean, I think that we would have definitely lost that game by a lot more than what we did. They fought the whole game, even that when we were down and our chips were down. They kept standing up, and they were there every time, and they'd work it out amongst each other, and they still stifled our movement out of the fence. But like the likes of Homsch and who else got some rebounds? It was Jonas he got a few rebounds. Bobby Carlile got a lot of rebounds as well, and they all sort of gelled together, and they kept us in it. But it was looking, and at the end of that third quarter, it started looking a bit ominous.
I mean, our defence kept us in the game, no doubt about that. And I think probably 4 of my top 5 players were our defenders, and which is probably a strange thing to say when you lose. I mean, you probably don't expect that, but I mean, Carlile, Trengove, Cracker, they were just unbeatable. And if we didn't have them on the park, we would have lost by a hell of a lot more, I think. But I don't know. We just seem to have trouble getting it out of their forward zone, and it's been an issue all year. I think it was 17-6 inside 50s in that third quarter, and teams are now successfully shutting us down and shutting out any chance of us being able to go end to end. And they zone probably 25 to 30 metres back from what teams were doing last year, meaning that we need to kick short from the kick-ins. We aren't able to do that sort of end-to-end quick goal from which takes about 10 seconds to go from the kick-in to the forward line. And in the end, we've resorted back to the old let's kick it sideways 15 metres to the pocket and lock ourselves into kicking it in one direction before hoofing it 15 metres to a contest with 15 people thing, which is just entirely frustrating. And the worst thing about that is that unfortunately our tolls aren't good enough to actually become the get out of jail free card, which is what Lade and Wakeland and Primus and Meady and Chad used to be able to do. And you knew that if you kicked it to them, they'd be able to mark it 8 times out of 10. And I don't think we really have anyone in the side at the moment where you can just kick and hope, and you know that they're going to mark it on the other end.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, we had Patrick Ryder as almost a stay-at-home forward when he wasn't relieving Lobie in the ruck. And, when he's up one end and we just can't get it into him, he's essentially no good. And it did surprise me that with Schultz injured, we didn't resort to having Schultz camped in the square and having Ryder, maybe being that relieving mark across halfback and wing. But I was just looking at the score progression on that lovely website, AFL Tables, that all of us steal stats from. And from the 14-minute mark in the second quarter, when Jay Schultz kicked the goal, which was our 4th of 4 goals for the quarter, we had Matthew Lobie kick our next goal at the 11-minute mark of the third quarter, and then we had to wait for Chad Wingard at the 10-minute mark of the last quarter to get our next one. So, I mean, that's about almost a quarter and a half of football we were able to score 2 goals. Yeah. And it doesn't matter who you play in this league, you're going to get beaten. And in that time, as we know, West Coast absolutely avalanched us, and they could have kicked a ton more. I mean, they had rushed behinds, and Kennedy missed a few shots at goal. Kennedy with one arm, might I add. And really, you've really just got to look at this second half performance and try to deconstruct it and find out where we've gone wrong and how we can improve it. And as you said, Macca, it's quite obvious that we're not coping with this new basketball quarter court press that everybody's employing now. I mean, even poor teams are trying to get their entire 18 men into one quarter of the ground to try and put pressure on opponents. And by having 2 or 3 outriders sitting another 20 or 30 metres back, that quick relieving kick for Matt White, for Jake Need in the past, for Chad Wingard, Schultz getting on the end of it, right at the other end. I mean, that's just not actually able to happen, even if we did have the skills and the quick ball movement because of the way teams are setting up. So have we been pantsed strategically? So the wheels turned over the summer. Everybody's looked at the way we've done it, and they've worked us out. And now we're stuck with a game plan that isn't effective as of yet. Or is it just we're just in poor form? Our players, for whatever reason, be they underdone, be they carrying niggles, like Ebert getting a knock when he was on fire, Wingard against Hawthorn getting a knock when he was on fire. Are we just in one of those periods where we're just struggling for a bit of luck on top of a bit of poor form? Psychologically, we're a little bit flat. And will it just turn? Will we just play ourselves into form over the coming weeks?
I hope so. I mean, teams evolve and we need to evolve with them. And that's a challenge for the coaching staff. And I don't know, I think we're almost there. I mean, again, we've just come off beating Hawthorn and North Melbourne and the Crows, and we look pretty good doing so. Even though we had these same issues, we played some absolute blistering football in those 3 games. And look, losses happen. Maybe this is just one of those games where you just lose. Your head's not in the right spot. I did mention in the preview podcast that I was concerned about our mentality going into this game after such a huge start to the season, whether we would suffer a little bit of a mental letdown, and I think maybe we did a little bit. Maybe we thought it would just happen. I think maybe at halftime we came out a little bit too cocky and thought that it would just happen, and we started sort of Lairising quite a bit and trying to be a bit too fancy. And I think that's a bit of a concern and something that the coaches need to sort of look at and try and resolve. In terms of strategy, have we been found out? I don't think we have. I think we're almost there, to be honest.
Yeah, like I was thinking about Justin Westhoff, and if you were to go down the track of thinking that perhaps strategically we've been found out a little bit or teams have caught up to what we're doing, Justin Westhoff seems to be the canary in the coal mine in so much as his form's really suffered. I mean, when we got Ryder, everybody just thought happy days. It's going to release Justin Westhoff. He can roam all over the ground. The issue is with this new quarter court press that everybody's employing is that there's no kick behind play anymore. So when Justin Westhoff wheels into the midfield, he wheels into defence, he's up forward, there's no space for him to float to contests anymore. Everybody's accountable. There's 36 men jammed into one side of the forward 50 or the back 50. And I just think he can't thrive on getting the loose ball or arriving late to contests like he used to be. And getting him involved is going to be the big challenge going forward, because when Westhoff doesn't perform, we're just nowhere.
Yeah.
Stagnant.
He has really struggled this year, and last year he went through a purple patch at the start of the year and had a great end to the season as well. And even his poor games last year were still pretty good. He was still taking 8 or 9 marks and getting 20 odd touches a game, and at least being busy. But this year he's just barely touched the ball and not been near it at all. And I guess that's a challenge for him to try and overcome. As you said, I guess everyone thought that with Ryder coming in, it would release Westhoff, and suddenly we've got this 3-prong tall forward attack that we were all hoping for, and it was going to win us lots of games. But apart from last week, it probably hasn't fired just yet.
And we tried to put him in the midfield in the second quarter. I think it was maybe the start of the second quarter, and he I don't know. We tried that as well in the pre-season. It didn't seem to come off too well. Couple that with his set shots that he still seems to be struggling with. I mean, it was a fairly easy shot, wasn't it? He was about maybe 30 out on a fairly tight angle, but he's been a bit disappointing this year, as you said. But he just needs a bit of consistency in some sort of role that he plays. Even if he's just gonna not be a roaming sort of versatile player, you just stick him in one spot and make him good at that, because he's not consistent in anything. It's probably not doing anything for his confidence, just not being able to find a place for himself.
Look, I know we all like to deny that it's a bit of a thing, but we are now 4 wins from 15 matches in post-Showdown games since 2007, and we've won just 1 of our last 9. Is this now a thing?
Well, it is. I mean, the stats have said it. If you heard Ken talk in his post-match, he said, well, the stats don't lie. I mean, it's clearly something that, whether we want to admit it or not, it's affecting us in some way. And, we've got to overcome it. It's all just mental. I mean, sure, we're going to be we're going to be sore or we're going to be maybe a little bit slower than the game before. But that shouldn't be any different to any other week. And we got to, if we're going in with that tighter mindset into a showdown, that we can't come out the other end and find ourselves a win, then we must be going into the showdown with a wrong mindset, because you can't be suffering that after every single showdown. That's too consistent.
Yeah, at this point, I'd like to send a cheerio to dormant Port poster Art Vanderlei, who, as we all know, was quite hot on this very topic throughout the week, and was largely scoffed at. But as I said to him, when is he ever wrong? And as it proved to be, he absolutely got it right. We had the showdown flu or the showdown hangover, and you think back to the great moments of showdown flu history, such as the Gold Coast game in 2011, coming off that wonderful win over Adelaide in 2011 when Primus gave the big spray and it looked like the start of something happening, and we came out the week after and lost by 40 points after being 40 points up to a team that hadn't registered a win. So it's been a thing for a long time, and people can write it off as a coincidence. Yes, local derbies are big matches in any sport. I mean, people say they're just another game, but we know they're not. You get the hype during the week. You dread losing. It is just 4 points, but it's a pretty handy 4 points. But clearly, as you've said, Heffo, and as you said with the stats, Macca, we've clearly got an issue with it, and we've got to rectify it quick smart.
Well said. Look, we've had a bit of discussion on Twitter about Gus. Bevan tweeted in saying that he hated the knob sitting behind him, continually bagging Gus, oblivious to all the hard work he was doing. And a couple of others have also mentioned that they heard quite a lot of criticism for Gus in the stands. Hamo5 also tweeted in the same thing. And also Port Adelaide 1870 and Ryan Simmons as well said Gus steps up when games are on the line. How did we see his game on the weekend? I actually thought he was very good.
He did play well. He got a fair few touches, and he took some marks where he needed to, and gave away a few frees, but he gets them back as well. I think the main issue with Monfries is he's been drafted, or he's been brought over as a small forward, and he plays on the forward line, and you look at his numbers, and you just can't get away with having. Well, I can't anyway. Seeing him have 4 goals for the whole year he's had.
Playing, I think so, yeah. You can't accept that as a supporter. Getting this guy that it's been widely sort of posted about how much he's earned and how much we got him over for, and how sort of vital he is to the older sort of group of blokes that we have, and you just sort of question. Is he right? Is this what we've gotten ourselves into? Is he going to get better than this, or is he just in a slump? Last year everyone thought he was injured, but he come out and played some good games later half of the year, and we thought, oh no, he's all good, no worries. But yeah, I don't know, he's a bit hot and cold, and everyone's sort of a bit right to be a little bit skeptical of how good he's going to be still. Is he still going to get better than this? I don't know. I think his role's changed a little bit, and he's not really that goal-kicking forward anymore, like what sort of Robbie Gray and Chad Wingard are. He's only taken 4 marks inside 50 for the year in 6 games. So I think that says to me that he's not really spending a whole lot of time inside the forward 50. He seems to be playing a bit more of a high half forward, almost as an extra midfielder, I guess you'd say, and delivering the ball inside 50. His inside 50 stats are a bit better. So I don't know, maybe we're not having him in the side as that sort of goal-kicking small forward anymore. But I guess, does he bring enough to the table if he's not kicking goals?
That's a very good question. I mean, I get the feeling that both he and White are both playing different roles. They're almost like a Pagan's Paddock type setup, for the middle-aged people among us who remember the halcyon days of North Melbourne. They were a long time ago. Matthew White and Angus Monfries find themselves, running up to the wing, doubling back. And I think, am I wrong in saying that Angus Monfries was moved on to, was it Elliot Yeo or one of their other half-back midfielders to try and negate some of their drive in the second half?
I think so. I think went on to Brad Shepherd, I reckon.
Yeah, it was one of them. They're all pretty much the same, the West Coast back line. I can't tell them apart out of a lineup of one. But, yeah, and really, I mean, Angus Monfries did everything that get us over the line, Hawthorn prelim style, in that last quarter. He absolutely lifted. He took some courageous marks. He tried hard. And it's just, there was maybe 2 or 3 people came with him. I mean, you know, he is on big money. We'd ideally like him to be kicking, say, 30 to 35 goals a year and giving off another 20 to 25. But the way football is these days, if you can't run through the middle as a small forward, you're almost redundant.
Yeah. He does provide that, and look, I think he's had a okay start to the season. I thought he was fantastic against North Melbourne, and I thought he was pretty good on the weekend as well. But I don't know. I mean, I just like his courage. I mean, to go headfirst into that contest in the last couple of minutes, and I mean, God, he looked like he got murdered out there, but got back up and kicked a goal and all that stuff. I'm a big fan of Gus.
He took a huge mark going back with a flight late, didn't he, as well?
Yeah.
Where he ran hard to the wing and took a grab, and I think we butchered the result. It was at to Pittard, or it was right before that moment when Pittard shanked it out on the full.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this myth that, opposition fans, I mean, Angus wants freeze, Angus, more freeze. I mean, what game are you watching, you peanut gallery? I mean, Angus Monfries is probably one of the most, pound for pound, the most fearless player in the league when it comes to running back with the flight and putting his head over the ball. And yes, he played for some free kicks when he was, learning the caper alongside Matthew Lloyd, and thought, well, geez, if he could kick almost 1,000 goals doing it, then I might get a piece of this. But since he's been de-Essendoned and he's, put his head over the ball and, made it his number one priority, he's been fantastic when it comes to those things. And I just don't. Maybe it's because he's a pretty boy. People look at him and see that he's, a poker player extraordinaire, and he's from Sturt. He's the quintessential Sturt pretty boy. But he plays his football hard and he plays his football tough. And I think we should back him in, and hopefully he'll hit the board and continue doing all those little things that are making him so invaluable when we're going well.
That's it. Well, look, we've got a tweet from Port Adelaide 1870 who has asked a bit of a question about Hamish Hartlett. He's asked, what is Hammer's role? It looks like he's lacking a bit of confidence. His leg should be a weapon from half back. Look, on face value, Hammer's stats on the weekend were pretty impressive. 25 touches, 10 tackles. But whether he had the influence that he should have with those touches, I guess, comes under question.
Yeah, he probably could have... I find that I lose Hammer in the game sometimes. I sort of look back at a game and I think, oh, well, who played well? And you think about Hamish and you go, did I see Hamish? I think I saw Hamish. He did that. He did this. He did that. But yeah, he probably isn't quite taking the ball by the horns like you'd expect him to. And I can't remember who wrote it today. Someone was talking on one of the forums, and they were saying that you want more from a player like this at his age, with the weapons that he's got, with the body that he's got, he's got himself finally rid of injury, and you really want him to sort of push forward now and become one of those in the same sort of light you have Robbie Gray and Travis Boak. You want people to think, oh yeah, Port Adelaide is Travis Boak, Robbie Gray, and Hamish Hartlett, and a couple of others, Brad Ebert, and he's probably not quite at that point yet of everyone's expectation of him.
He almost vacillates between, and this is probably going to sound harsh, but hear me out. He almost vacillates between Bryce Gibbs when he's being quiet or he's not having an influence. Silky smooth mover, lovely disposal, knows how to win his own ball, knows how to create line breaking run, but just doesn't have an influence when he's playing poorly. But when he plays super well, and this is what we probably should expect from him all the time because of his age bracket and his skills, is, I'm trying to think of a comparison for someone who consistently plays well that has Hamish's skill set. He's not quite Judd. I can't really think of anybody who has that unique ability to hit goals from 6, has the lateral movement, wins it or breaks lines. But
Eddie Betts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Or not. We probably expect more of Hammer that he can provide for whatever reason. You know, he did get that injury early in the season, and we know that he's had a history of niggles and probably running within himself. Like when Hamish runs at full speed, he's lightning quick, but for the last 3 to 4 years, he's probably run within himself because of his soft tissue issues. And I'm not sure whether when he's not having an influence, he's just going at maybe 70 or 80%. And when he's playing well and he's dominating and he's kicking goals from 60 and he's really stretching out the legs, that's when he's dominant. And I'm not sure whether when we're playing poorly, he's got that ability to individually step up into that bracket, because he always seems to play exceptionally well when the team plays well. And when we're struggling, he's just down that little bit. But, yeah, I don't know. What did I just say? That was a massive ramble. Sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, definitely, we need more out of him. I mean, that miss from 15 metres out, there were people on the Port Adelaide Facebook saying, oh, it was windy, and oh, I'd like to see you kick that goal. It's Hamish Hartlett kicking from 15 metres out, more or less straight run. He should nod that through with the bridge of his nose. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Just incredible.
That was an absolute gimme.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for someone of Hamish Hartlett's ability. I mean...
And look, that probably summed up our day, to be honest.
Exactly. And then, and then he had the goal to point to the post. Like, he's incredibly honest. No, Hamish. Just pull your shirt over your head and do the big aeroplane to the other end of the ground. Con the umpire into, thinking it was a goal. But, yeah, I mean, we just need... When we're playing poorly, Hamish is one of those barometer players whose form tends to fluctuate depending on how the team goes.
More positives. How bloody good was Cracker on the weekend? What a breakout performance.
He was good, yeah. I'm not his biggest fan, but no, he was very good. He was able to really take it on. He was attacking the game really aggressively, and whenever there was a ball to be won, he was definitely there, and just his intensity at the ball it was incredible. Some of the skillful things that he did moving out of defence was great, and I think that you couple that with Impey coming in and playing as well as Cracker in that defence, or maybe one of them moving up the ground. I can see them both in the same team, and I've always been not a fan of Cracker, but sorry, not a fan of Cracker, but just not a fan of him coming in and Impey losing out a spot because of his addition to the
similarities
to the team. Yeah. But I can see them both in the same team now. I can see, both of them have great run. Both of them have great awareness and can really move that ball out of our defensive 50. And I want to see it. I want to see it really happen. And I want Cracker to stay in the side. But yeah, I think that also want Impey in there too.
I think with Pollock out of the team and White under a bit of an injury cloud, I think Impey needs to come in and play on a wing. I think to see him sort of put on the afterburners and burn off some players and run down the wing and have a bit of an impact further up the field would be some sort of sight to see, I reckon. Yeah,
absolutely. I can't disagree with that. I mean, this we've heard about it before. The story of Cracker is absolutely fantastic, and if he keeps building on his fitness as he keeps playing, builds on his confidence, feels like he belongs, I mean, he should be a fixture across half back for the next, until he's 31, 32, really, if he stays fit. But yeah, if Impey can come in, they can kind of rotate, but also release Broadbent into the middle. Like Broadbent was just anonymous on the weekend. And I'd like to see Broady run through the guts at the odd clearance as well, just to freshen him up a bit and maybe change his role. And when you've got 4 or 5 of these guys, they've all got pace, they've all got poise, they can all use the ball brilliantly. I mean, that's the cornerstone of the Geelong and the Hawthorn defences. They don't have, Shellmakers aside, he doesn't count. But, they've all got these medium players who can defend, they can run, lateral movement, spot-up vision. And if we can have Cracker continue to develop, bring on Impey on the wing this week, absolutely agree with that. I'd have him replacing White personally, as I said today on the board. Hopefully we can have them rotate through there while Pollock's out and give us just that poise, the speed, the vision, all the stuff we've been lacking, really, when we haven't been playing well.
I mean, Broady's another one who probably hasn't been in great form to start the year. He's been a bit down and we don't seem to be using him as much even though he often spends a lot of time as the spare defender. We don't seem to be using his skills all that much. And look, he's had one contested possession in the last 2 weeks total. So I think he needs to be someone that... and that's pretty disappointing, really, because Brody was a bloody good inside midfielder for a long time there before he went to the half-back line. And I just think he needs to be doing a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, Tribey.
Go, Heff. No, go.
I don't think he involved himself enough in that game at all. No, he fumbled in times where you just needed him to take it, and he did get lost back there. I mean, there was a lot of defenders that were really hitting their straps and doing the work, but he sort of didn't really get involved in that. And I feel that all his disposals, like you said, they were all uncontested on the weekend. And he did hit his targets, but he just did not get anywhere near enough of the ball as what he could have got. He could have made space and been that entry out of defence and been just a spot up kick to move it along the chain, but he just didn't get involved.
I mean, we're not risking turning him into Steven Salopek, are we?
That's a fair question.
I say that with the greatest respect to Sal, and I also say that with the greatest respect to Brody. I love them both, but as you say, Macca, I mean, 3, 4, 5 years ago, Matthew Broadbent was looking like an absolute peach of a steal as an inside-outside midfielder. And, when it works, when he has an influential game from half-back, he looks absolutely fabulous. But there's just too many games where a man of his skill, size, and ability just drifts along anonymously and just has no impact. And, do we have to start rotating him back through the middle to get him recalibrated?
I think so. I mean, it certainly couldn't hurt, I guess. And, adding an extra midfielder to that mix if things aren't going to plan like they did on the weekend, again, I mean, it couldn't hurt, really.
I mean, that game was absolutely set up for Brody to receive it at about 60 and kick it into the post, like against Carlton. It was just, it was absolutely set up for that type of heartbreaker, wasn't it? And you didn't see him bob forward.
No. Look, anything else to talk about for the power game?
Anyone want to touch on Ryder and Lobie? Or I think that, I don't think neither of them had huge games. I think that I just noticed that Ryder's his work, even though he probably didn't play his greatest game, his work at ground level in contested areas was something that I marvelled at. He went to ground. If he was on the ground, he was able to get the ball out, even though he might have been under a player's wing. He'd get it out and dish it out, and we'd get away from the sort of the contest. And I feel that he keeps his feet really well. I've just noticed. I've probably just been marvelling at him because he's our newest sort of toy. But his level, his ground ball. I don't hate to say ground ball, but his work on the ground is incredible, and he seems to be in tune with the midfielders already, and they must have just been working really hard over the off season to sort of calibrate that. But I just wanted to sort of make light of his ground ball. It's incredible. I've never noticed a ruckman with such ground ball efforts before. Yeah.
I mean, Lobie's fantastic at the ground ball as well, and certainly in laying tackles and following up his work. Has it worked so far, the two-prong ruck duo? I'm not sure it has. I mean, we're constantly playing to losing ruckman. I mean, Lobie, I know he's been injured to start the year, but I mean, he's just got to do a bit more in the middle, to be honest.
Well, who is Sinclair? I've just looked at the stats and seen that Sinclair had 24 hitouts.
Yeah.
I mean, Lobie and Ryder had 29 between them. What's going on there?
Nick, now
I mean, it's disappointing. I mean, it just seems like Lobie's lost a little bit of leap, and he's never been a leaping ruckman to begin with, but he just seems pretty stationary at the moment and is just sort of losing himself in the contest.
Again,
it's almost like he's reverted back to 2012 Lobie, where all he could do was sort of try and negate the other guy from getting a touch on the ball, and that's about it.
Well, is he still troubled by that quad injury that he carried into the season that the club didn't really tell us what it was about, He
was on radio last week, I think it was, and he sort of said that he was feeling a lot better from it. He probably said that He's a couple of games that he played at the start were, it was a little bit niggly, but he ended up feeling alright last week, and I thought he was probably set for back to a lady best, but obviously maybe he has a couple more weeks to go.
Look, I guess the last question is a cause for concern. I mean, we saw GWS beat Hawthorn on the weekend as well. Is it just a case of, the teams are pretty even this year?
Well, the second hate that I had in case someone took my first one was big calls regarding our season already. And look, I think that if you were going to look at the stats and you were going to say to yourself after 6 rounds, where would you like us to be? Either 3-3 or 4-2 would have been probably the popular answers. And I think if you look at us playing West Coast after a showdown, you might have thought we could have lost that, but I don't think there's great cause for concern. It's so even the playing field. It's incredible how there's we're a win away from second place basically, and there's everyone up to there's 7 of them. They're all on 4-2.
Yeah, I mean it's looking like Fremantle are, the Geelong of the year, where they just look absolutely primed in all facets to be dominant, and you can't see where their next loss is coming from. And I think maybe the next pack of teams, like your Sydneys, your Port Adelaides, your Hawthorns, I mean, they're the ones who, on our best day, we will be competitive and we can beat each other. But, Hawthorn 3-3 with a few injuries. We're 3-3 with a few injuries. I think Sydney 4-2.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sydney are 4-2. So, I mean, they're not exactly firing on all cylinders, having lost to Footscray. So, it's a very long season, and you're right. There's a lot of hot takes from week to week about our results. But if you're playing the long game, you'd think Fremantle would have to absolutely fall in a hole to not have the minor premiership and one of those home prelims stitched up. And it's up to us to hopefully beat Hawthorn, Sydney, and a couple of those other teams, maybe even West Coast, who could be a bolter, regardless of all their injuries, out of second.
Cheer, cheer the black and the white. Honour the Magpies day and by night. Live that.
Look, let's move on and talk about the SANFL, because we had quite a decent result there on the weekend. It was round 6 and we played Sturt at Alberton Oval on Saturday, and it was a good hard-fought victory. The match ebbed and flowed at the quarter-time breaks, it seems, and Port won by 8 points, 10 goals 15 to 11 goals 1. Bit of a strange game. I mean, it seemed to be really affected by the wind. There were 17 goals kicked to the southern end and just 4 kicked to the northern end for the day.
It was an incredible game to witness. Sturt, they they simply could not kick a single goal going into the breeze, and you'd see them. They would press. They'd be pressing in the second quarter and the fourth quarter, and they'd kick it high and they'd kick it long, and it'd fall up in the wind and it would just drop straight back down into one of our defenders, and off we'd go again. It was good that we were able to kick, all right into the breeze, which probably saved us from getting a bit of a walloping again. But it was old mate Zane Kirkwood and Corey Beard were two of the best for Sturt, and they really stood up. And you really hate to see those blokes moved on. And some of the ones that we got aren't too bad, but they're the ones you would like to have kept around the club. I think Sammy Goldhorn had a whole bunch of touches again. He looked okay. He didn't look probably as good as what Amon and Impey did look. I like Jesse Palmer he had a couple of shots on goal, and he was pretty. You could spot him around the ground. He was getting a lot of the ball, and he was moving pretty well. And so Wagner had a few runs up the ground. He does have a lot of speed, and you do see it at SANFL level, the difference that he has. And when you have Wagner doing big runs from half back, and you have Impey doing big runs from half back, and even Darcy Burn-Jones had this one. It was 100% Pittard-esque. It was a brilliant run from half back, and we all looked at each other, all of us that were there, and we thought, God, if he can do that, that is Pittard. He's going to be another Pittard. So. It was some really great signs from some of the youngsters, but I unfortunately, the tools couldn't really get too much done again, and it was a bit unfortunate seeing. I hate seeing Shaw in the back lines. It makes me really angry because you really, even though he hasn't really had a chance to show himself again this year, and you want him to show us what he can do in that forward line because he's one of the ones that he's got to step up, or else we've got that massive gap in age between our tall forwards, and you want to see what he can do at this point of his career.
Look,
I think it's probably good for Wagner's confidence to get a fair bit of the ball after a couple of sort of down weeks in the last few weeks, and look for him to kick the winner in the last quarter would do his confidence no harm at all.
No harm at all. Yeah, it was a great kick. I didn't think he'd kick it, and but he did, and he grew a little bit in my books after this weekend. So keen to see him move on from here and move upwards.
Look, I didn't actually see the game, but I just wanted to say, Corey Beard, 21 disposals, 12 marks, 3 goals. Zane Kirkwood, 17 disposals, 2 goals. No SANFL in SANFL, guys.
Well said.
I mean, honestly, they want to keep sooking and complaining about the AFL and the system and all the rest of it. How about acknowledging all the guys that they've pilfered at a cut price rate?
That's it.
Yeah, and they're going to play. These guys are going to play for Sturt potentially for the rest of their careers, aren't they? They're not going anywhere.
No,
unfortunately for
that's
them.
Right.
Yeah.
No, well said. I thought Jakey Need had some good success up forward, especially in the first half, where we seemed to isolate him a little bit in the forward 50.
Yeah, he moved and he made some good space. He was able to make some space on the wing and really make himself an option. There was this one time I think he was up against their ruckman. I think it might have been him or Darcy Byrne-Jones, but they just turned him inside out and made him look stupid. He's been consistent. I think back in the SANFL, he's done all right. He's probably half put his hand up for selection again, but not too sure. Not sure where to go from here with Needy, whether he gets back in the side sort of sooner rather than later, or they're going to manage him again like last year.
Look, Carl Amon, he had another good game, 20 touches, 9 marks. He just keeps pressing for selection. He
does, and you think with the soft draw apparently we've got coming up, you'd hope that he'd have a gig. I mean, it was the kept back emergency last week, and you thought if Pollock comes out, he'd go straight in if he was a late change, and it didn't happen. The week before that, he was up there in the emergencies again. He didn't get a shot, but he keeps going back and he keeps knocking the door down. They're going to notice him, and we were there underneath the where the players and coaches all stand on that balcony, and they'll see him. They know it. They're seeing him every week out there, just putting his head over it and really showing some dash. So I'm looking forward to it, and I really hope that he just takes it and he just kills it at AFL level, because he's got something real special about him.
Yeah.
Look, we've just had a question come in from Tribey. Sam Cahoon, where do you reckon he's at, you guys? I mean, 25 disposals, 12 marks, 4 tackles, 122 Dream Team points for those who are that way inclined. He superficially looks like he's played a really good game, but I've heard a little bit of scuttlebutt that he isn't as effective, or perhaps isn't having the influence that we would have liked to see him step up to AFL level. Where do you see him?
Yeah, Sam with his games are strange. You see the stats and you think he must have just been on show. You must have just not been able to take your eyes off him. But he's a little bit like Hammer in that instance. He gets a lot of the ball, and I think that Sam as a player, he's one of those players that will always just be a magnet to the ball, whether he's looking for it or not. And when he gets it, he will, he'll usually spot up someone, and he'll have a good sort of little patch there. But I don't know. I've been to all the home games bar one, I think, this year, and I haven't really seen him be a best on ground sort of performance, but he's been in the best. I mean, he's getting a lot of it, and he's sort of toweling him up, but he's just not shining like you'd be thinking that he would.
It's going to be interesting to see how he goes. I mean, as we know, he came back from the knee reconstruction, so perhaps, we're all marking him a little bit harshly, but yeah, I mean, clearly he's still got the ball magnet quality. I mean, he hasn't lost that. So, yeah, hopefully he can start to become a little bit more effective and start knocking on the door for selection to back up the stats.
That's it.
Mm.
Well, look, we'll leave it there tonight, guys. Thanks for coming on.
No worries. Hopefully next time we'll have a bloody win to talk about.
That's it. Yes, happy times. That's what we all want.
Can I have one
That's it.
request before
Yes.
we go? I'm just trying to follow the tweets in from Twitter, and I've noticed nobody's using hashtag PortFanRadio to put at the end of their tweets. So perhaps we could put out a call for future shows to use the hashtag PortFanRadio.
Yep, I like that.
Excellent.
Yeah, definitely.
Hashtag PortFanRadio, hashtag Fisting Rick. That'd be great.
Hashtag Perweckett, hashtag right.
Oh, I love it. Look, we'll have our Who Am I question back on Thursday when Rick comes back. I know everyone's sort of scratching their heads as to who it might be, but it is a bit more obvious than what people think. We've also done the draw for the 2 tickets to join both Rick and myself in the RAA Lounge for the Richmond game, which will also announce the 2 winners for that on Thursday as well. So I guess until then, boys, can't the pair.
Go the pair.
Go Port.
Goes forward again for Port Adelaide. No laughing matter for the Roos. Treadray. Oh, don't tell me. Oh, Treadray! Party time! And thank you very much.